in the chat. We will do our best to catch those, but as you can see with everyone popping in here, the chat does move really, really quickly. So if you want to make sure we see your question, your best bet is in the Q&A tab. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for joining us. Happy Thursday. If you're just popping on, welcome. My name is Maddie, and I will be your host of today's webinar. I'm so excited you're all here. If it is your first webinar with us, welcome, welcome. So glad you found your way here. Such a fabulous community on here every single Thursday. Welcome, everybody. Okay, it is officially 2 o'clock. It's always such a fast 5 minutes watching where everyone is joining from. I am going to go ahead and pause our music so we can go ahead and get started today. Welcome. Happy Thursday. My name is Maddie, and thank you so much for joining our Hi Mama Helps webinar to discuss co-regulation as the path to self-regulation in the classroom. I'm so excited to dive into this with you all. First things first, quick reminder about our giveaway. If you are here every Thursday, you know about this, but if it's your first time joining us, if you're at the live webinar today, you're automatically entered for a chance to win our $50 gift card giveaway for supplies, resources, books, whatever it may be for your classroom. So keep an eye out for our show notes email. That's where we announce the winner. Your name will be right in there. If you're also the winner, do not worry. We will be sure to contact you directly as well. Just make sure you're checking your spam, your junk, your all inboxes. There's so many of them now because they can hide in there. And a quick disclaimer, as always, before we do dive into the webinar today. The content we are sharing is not personalized, legal, or financial advice for your center. So the goal today is for us to come together as this community of early childhood professionals so we can learn some really great tips, tricks, and strategies for your center, for your classrooms, maybe for your homes, wherever it may be. But if you are looking at making any big changes at your center, we do just want to make sure that you're consulting with the right people, such as a legal or financial advisor. We will now give a listen to our land acknowledgement.
Hi Mama acknowledges that our main headquarters is situated in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto itself is a word that originates from the Mohawk word Takaranto, meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. As participants and guests in today's webinar, we are coming together from many different places around the world. We encourage you to learn about and acknowledge the land from which you participate.
And we will now give a listen to our diversity and inclusion statement.
Hi Mama is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment for our employees, customers, and community. Hi Mama welcomes and celebrates individuals of all backgrounds, orientations, and identities. Our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee aims to ensure we provide a safe environment for everyone to thrive while bringing their authentic selves to work. Our mission is to promote an inclusive workspace for all employees through education, discussion, and celebration of our differences. Embracing these differences while coming together with a common purpose is what makes our team extra special.
And a few housekeeping items before we dive in. As always, we are recording today's session, so if anything happens at all and you have to pop off early, do not worry. We are recording and we will be sending out the recording by early next week. We are also recording with the closed captions enabled. If for any reason you cannot see the closed captions and you do require those for today's live session, please do be sure to hit that CC tab on your side of the Zoom. They will be on in the recording as well. Certificate. For all of you on here, you will all absolutely be receiving a certificate of participation for taking the time out of your Thursdays to come here and learn with us today. We will be sending out those certificates to you by early next week. So again, don't worry if you don't see it today or even tomorrow. We are working on getting them to all of you who are on here by early next week. And lastly, Zoom. If you're having any issues with the Zoom, if you can't hear or you can't see the screen or the video, please do be sure to contact the support team over at Zoom. They're the ones who can help you. You can contact them at support.zoom.us if you do need assistance for any reason. Hi Mama Academy. If you're interested in learning more about self-regulation in the classroom, we actually have a very exciting new course on Hi Mama Academy called Cultivating Emotional Regulation. So very, very exciting. If you're interested in today's topic, which I know all of you on here are, and you want to continue your learning, we have an amazing course in Hi Mama Academy. The course will provide you with the skills you need to help children regulate their emotions in the classroom. In case you haven't heard about Hi Mama Academy yet, it is our all new online platform designed to give early childhood educators on-demand access to professional development training. So that is key there. I know how hard it is to find time for professional development. Hi Mama Academy is flexible. If you have staff, some work 7 to 3, some work 10 to 6. Hi Mama Academy allows for that flexible professional development on all of your educator schedules. We have over 60 hours of courses in here, and the best part, they're all IASET accredited courses in there, from everything from understanding children's friendships to modernizing your center. You can sign up for a free 7-day trial if you just want to pop into Hi Mama Academy, see what the courses are like, see how they work, see if it works for you. You can access a 7-day free trial. Super exciting. Nora will post a link in the chat so you can check it out. And finally, your host. So welcome. If you've never met me before, if this is your first time at one of our webinars, super exciting. Let us know in the chat if this is your first webinar with us. My name is Maddie. I am the host of our Hi Mama Helps webinars. I am a customer advocacy specialist here at Hi Mama, and I'm also one of the registered early childhood educators that we have here on our team. As always, I have my lovely co-host Nora with me. Nora, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. Nora, what is going on with you?
Hey, Maddie. I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. Not much. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm going to do some wine tasting in the Niagara region for those of you in Ontario. But yeah, I'm excited to learn lots today in our webinar.
Very exciting. Sounds like a very nice weekend ahead for you. Everyone, Nora is on the chat. So if you post your questions in the Q&A, Nora will make sure you get those to me. We get those to our guests. And Nora will be in the chat with you as well if you need anything today. Okay, finally, last, absolutely not least, our special guest today. We have Dr. Donna Hausman, as well as Emily Stone, who will be joining us a little later in the webinar. Welcome, welcome, Donna and Emily. Thank you for being here. Please feel free to go ahead and turn your mic and your camera on. Welcome, Donna. Thank you so much for being here with us again.
It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
I am so excited for today's webinar. I am going to go ahead, Donna, and stop sharing my screen. Stage is all yours, so I'll let you take it away.
Okay, great. Well, I'm delighted to be here with everybody and have the chance to talk about this very important topic. It's hard to wrap our heads around the fact that we're entering the third year, the third session of the COVID era, and we all continue to try to adjust to this new normal. The implications of this time is so very evident. You don't need to check your news feed to really see how the stress, the uncertainty, the disruption, trauma, loss of the past few years has impacted all of us. You only need to walk into your classrooms. So what are children experiencing? Long before the pandemic and most recent social and global unrest, we were seeing a dramatic increase in children's stress, anxiety, and dysregulated behavior, heading straight for a mental health crisis. This unprecedented time has exacerbated the situation. And as we all know, late last year, the American Academy of Pediatrics, of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the Children's Hospital Association, along with the U.S. Surgeon General, all declared a national state of emergency in children's mental health. Our youngest learners have now lived most of their lives in a time of major disruption, uncertainty, and unpredictability. And not surprisingly, it's taken its toll. We're looking at a new era in education, informed and impacted by this time. We may not know what the long-term implications are as of yet, but we do know what we see in front of us in the classrooms each and every day. A study done by Dr. Walter Gillum at Yale has shown that 56% of pre-K teachers report children being more aggressive, hyperactive, and oppositional, while 55% have noticed their children were exhibiting more shy, withdrawn, and anxious behaviors than seen before. And recently, there's been a stark realization by both parents and teachers alike that especially for our youngest learners who have been without the critical social and emotional learning opportunities, they are ill-equipped to deal not only with their age-appropriate developmental tasks as to how to line up, appropriately engage and play with others, but also are lacking in the skills to be able to express and cope with their big emotions and those of their friends across their play space, needing now more than ever to develop the skills of emotional intelligence, the ability to be able to be aware of, understand, experience, and express and regulate their own emotions and understand those of others. So in front, we have the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence. And we're going to go through each to help us understand a little bit more about what these building blocks help children to be able to do and develop. The first half on the left-hand side is emotion knowledge. And what that really is comprised of is really the ability to recognize and identify and label one's emotions. For example, what am I feeling? And below that, we have emotional understanding, the ability to be able to understand and discern between and among different emotions, and to understand and discern them accurately. On the second half, the right-hand side is really consisting of emotion regulation. On the top right-hand quadrant, we have emotional expression, which is the ability to express emotions constructively, whether verbally, with gestures, non-verbally. And on the bottom half, we have emotional regulation, the ability to manage and cope effectively with heightened emotions, either negative or positive emotions, how we manage and deal with excitement versus anger, for example. And it's critical that the adults understand these 4 quadrants for themselves. We often talk about this in relation to children, but it's really important to keep in mind that the adults must do these things first in order so that they can model and guide the children that they're working with. So how does this relate to children's learning? Well, there's a critical and direct link between emotions and learning. And we've all been there in a classroom in the throes of chaos where heightened emotions stop everything in its tracks, especially learning. When our brains are cluttered with heightened emotions or unmanaged stress and anxiety, thinking is impaired, impacting our ability to learn. And unregulated emotions hijack our ability to focus, attend, and take in information and grasp new concepts, preventing access to the critical executive functioning skills that are central and necessary for learning. Having the skills to declutter our brains by being aware of and managing and regulating our emotions and effectively dealing with stress and anxiety is fundamental and foundational to learning. So how do we develop these skills so we can access these executive functioning skills and learn? Well, the answer is self-regulation. So what is self-regulation? It's the ability to regulate our emotions, our thinking, and our behavior. Regulation of emotion is to be aware of, manage, and regulate our emotions in order to deal effectively with stress and anxiety. And self-regulation is pivotal to our ability to focus, problem solve, and learn. Neuroscience describes the growth of self-regulation as the development of executive functioning skills. And these essential skills require self-regulation, not only to help with managing our big emotions, but also to better regulate our thinking and our behavior. Self-regulation, emotional intelligence, and executive functioning skills are all interrelated. And you already know what happens in a classroom and what happens for a child when the skills of self-regulation are not present. We see dysregulated behavior, acting out, aggressive actions, bullying, and so many meltdown moments. And they can be infectious, impacting and disrupting the entire classroom. And before you know it, you have an entire classroom in full meltdown mode, and possibly including yourself too. So how do we flip the switch? How do we change the course that we're on and provide children and ourselves with the skills that we need to move forward? And how do we instill the skills of self-regulation? At the heart of children being able to develop these important skills are relationships. Children need positive, supportive, and responsive relationships in their earliest years, not only to survive, but most importantly, to thrive. So why are responsive relationships so important? Well, children, as we know, are emotional detectives, and all children develop within the context of relationships. But it's children's optimal development happens within the context of empathic, nurturing, and supportive responsive relationships. And children are constantly tuning in, absorbing, and reacting to the actions, responses, behaviors, and reactions of significant adults in their world. What we refer to as key socializers. They're looking for guidance and want to understand the uncertain world around them. And children's ability to develop the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence, as we had talked about, being aware of, understanding, identifying, expressing, and regulating their emotions, starts with how we engage, respond, and interact with the children in terms of their observations of our actions, of our reactions to situations and to other people. It will be internalized and applied to their own experiences. And as educators and caregivers, you need to learn how to cope with your own emotions and your stress, not just for your own sense of well-being, but because of the important role you play in helping children learn how to cope and manage with their own emotions, their stress, and challenges. But before you can help children, you must first learn how to help yourself cope with your own stress and emotions that accompany the stress that you're experiencing. It's referred to oftentimes as the oxygen mask rule and as key socializers for children. Before we can help children regulate their emotions and manage their stress and become emotionally competent, we need to lay the same foundations for ourselves first, so we can be the responsive relationship that the children need to grow and to develop and thrive. Because what happens when responsive relationships aren't in place, or when educators and caregivers are unable to manage their own emotions and stress, without responsive relationships, children will be less able to learn, deal with heightened emotions, and cope in the face of adversity, potentially resulting in trauma or the inability to mitigate the impact of traumatic experiences. Now, trauma used to be thought of as resulting from a singular defined violent event, such as the death of a loved one or an abuse. But during this pandemic, recent figures have shown that close to 7 million children globally have lost a parent, a grandparent, or loved one. As alarming as these figures are, they were gathered back in January of 2022 and do not include the most recent surges. And despite the incredible losses that children are facing, decades of research in child development have also made it very clear that trauma is not caused by isolated events alone. Child development research has shown that in very young children, any major change or disruption can be traumatic, especially for children who don't have the presence of an attentive, supportive adult who's responsive to their needs and able to help them manage their emotions. Again, the presence of responsive relationships. And without the presence of responsive relationships, a child's stress hormone, the cortisol, the levels remain elevated, impacting healthy brain development and their body's ability to regulate stress. And this results in difficulties with key executive functioning skills, learning, behavioral issues, mental health, and health issues long-term into adulthood. In a recent revised policy statement issued by the American Academy of Pediatrics, endorsed a paradigm shift towards the importance of responsive relationships, not only as a buffer for childhood adversity and trauma, but also to the promotion of resilience in the future. What all of this makes clear is that there is a foundational need for responsive relationships to support children's development of self-regulation from the earliest years. And self-regulation develops as an outgrowth of co-regulation, co being the operative word here. So what is co-regulation? Well, co-regulation involves the responsive interactions provided by significant caregivers. And through the support, modeling, guidance, and empathic response of trusted adults, both in and out of the heat of the moment situations, children begin to internalize these behaviors, shaping their own understanding and expression and regulation of their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors, thus paving the way for self-regulation to develop. Being responsive and sensitive to the emotions of children by providing them with a safe and supportive environment is vital to keeping and helping them learn to label their emotions, express them constructively, and begin to experience how to manage and regulate their big feelings on their journey towards self-regulation. Self-regulation and co-regulation can look like a big hug, guiding deep breathing techniques, or singing a calming song when the young child is in the midst of a heightened emotional experience in order to help calm their bodies and their minds. So how young is too young? When do we really need to start supporting children with the development of self-regulation through co-regulation? Well, we start from birth. We need to be building an infrastructure of emotional intelligence to support children's mental health and well-being from the start. Developing these skills and capacities at the earliest age when the brain is most malleable creates the wiring and sets the patterning in the brain for life. The early development of children's ability to self-regulate is strengthened with our support. Our responses to children's heightened emotions, our calm and measured tone and tempo of our voice, our gentle and soothing touch, and our engaging eye contact helps even the youngest of child feel calm, feel seen, and feel safe. And it's far easier to prevent than repair. And when we support the youngest of children in co-regulating through our responsive relating, we are also supporting their development of coping skills, emotional management, and regulation from the beginning. We can start by being proactive with our responsive interactions by anticipating and predicting the responsiveness to children's needs, providing emotional and physical support, and modifying children's environments as needed to decrease stress, distress, and anxiety, and really provide a buffer against adversity and trauma. And with our support, children as young as infants can take their first baby steps from co-regulation towards self-regulation. Through co-regulation and responsive relationships, children begin to take ownership and agency of their ability to regulate their feelings, to be soothed, to take a deep breath, to find the words to express what they feel, and to know that their emotions, even the prickly ones, are there for a reason. And it's important that we support children in understanding from the earliest years that everyone has emotions. And all emotions are normal, they're natural, and they're necessary. It's what we do with them that really matters most of all. And you may often notice that children can get embroiled in the stress, not just of their own emotions, but the emotions of others too, their friends, their peers, their parents, and educators. And remember what we said about children being emotional detectives. The big feelings all around them can make them feel overwhelmed or even isolated. And with the support of nurturing, responsive relationships, children begin to take ownership of their emotional experiences by understanding what they're feeling and what caused it and what can help them feel better. Slowly but surely, children require less hands-on guidance and co-regulation becomes self-regulation. Through this process, this leads to internalization, where children really develop self-control. Learning how to express emotions constructively, effectively managing the intensity of their emotions, and developing a sense of control and agency during dysregulated moments is really critical. And it allows children to deal with uncertainty and teaches them the key coping mechanisms. So let's take a quick look at a video of how co-regulation and the support of a responsive educator in a moment of heightened stress can change that moment.
Come on out and I'll give you a hug. Rory, can I help you come out? I'm going to give you a big hug to make you feel better. And then when you calm down, let's talk about the problem and see what we can do. He hit your cheek. Okay, so we're going to talk about it with Rory and see what made him so mad. Okay? You feel better yet? Calm down yet? No, you tell me when you're ready to talk about it, okay? Take some deep breaths. Breathe in. So what was it that made you so mad? I'm so sad.
As we can see from this video, that when a child learns how to calm themselves down and regulate their behavior, they can then access their thinking and resolve conflicts and solve problems. And through this process, they discover how to become the boss of their feelings and develop self-control and empathy in dealing with stress, anxiety, and conflicts within or between one another. And you see how the teacher in this video was really tuned in to the child and really waiting for the child to really be available to hearing really what she was saying so that the child could then start to process and think about ways to solve the problem. And as we know, that when a child is preoccupied with big feelings, stress, or anxiety, their energy is no longer available to learn. And children with less developed emotional competence and self-regulation skills are at an increased risk for low academic achievement, emotional, behavioral, and social problems, low self-esteem, peer rejection, and school dropout. However, when children who can regulate intense feelings and are more able to pay attention and perform the critical executive functioning skills of listening, concentrating, and problem solving, they're also much better able to listen and understand the perspectives and experiences of others and act with empathy. At Hausman Institute's research has shown that children as young as preschool age who develop the skills of self-regulation are far better able to focus, attend, retain, and comprehend complex concepts. And it all comes down to emotional intelligence and self-regulation, fostered and nurtured through the critical, positive, responsive relationships. So what can we do to support children's co-regulation on the path towards self-regulation? And what can we do to support children's self-regulation? To support children through co-regulation, use a calm demeanor, such as calming words and tone of voice, and provide reassurance and understanding. And if a child is in distress and overwhelmed by their intense emotions, by responding with a calm voice, measured tempo, and focused manner, you can help bring the child down from a heightened dysregulated state to one that meets your intentional regulated state. So also, you can guide children in beginning to calm down by participating in deep breathing exercises together while making physical contact. Offer hugs, a back rub, or handholds as options of physical contact when desired, and using physical tools and visual aids to support children in showing or sharing what they're feeling. Teach children the word space. If they're not ready for your help in calming down, this gives the child the ability and the autonomy of their own emotional experience and allows them to let you know when they're ready. And to support children's self-regulation, create a calm down space. It could be in a certain corner of your classroom, a cozy corner, in order to help them feel that there's a safe place that is quiet and away from the chaos, with tools that support regulation. And make sure there's an assortment of regulation tools, such as calm down bottles, family photos that are available, for a child to kind of go to and access in order to calm and soothe them. And when children experience a heightened emotion, provide reassurance so the child knows that you're there to help when they're ready. Offer the cozy corner as a choice and provide options by asking, what would help you calm down right now? Would you like to read a book or look at your family photo? Offer to take a space or break. For example, if an activity is causing a big feeling, offer a space away or to take a break, which is not the same as a time out, but it's a time away. You can also guide the child to think of their own ways to calm down. For example, would you like to draw what you're feeling? And that might help them to calm down, and then they're able and more available to talk about it. And when supporting children's self-regulation, make sure that they always know that you're there to help them when they're needing it. Once children are calm, support them in sharing what they're feeling, either verbally or with a visual tool, and guide them in connecting their feelings to a cause. What happened? Then support children in coming up with a solution to solve the problem or to help them feel better. Revisit their feelings to make sure that the children really do feel better, and remind them that there's solutions that they came up with for the next time that they engage in a similar experience. So let's take a look at a brief video of the impact that responsive caregivers can make on children's meltdown moments. And pay attention as you're watching the video to these techniques that support children's self-regulation.
So lift it up and try moving it. I know it's frustrating, but with building, it takes a lot of thinking about how maybe you can use the material differently, right? I know, I see that. You're so frustrated. Yeah, I understand it is frustrating. Why don't you try moving it down a little bit so that it will help it to stay? Sure. Do you want to give Vanessa a turn so while you're feeling frustrated so you can take a moment? I know it's hard.
Please can we have some tea? Please can we have some tea? I already borrowed some more tea. No,
Alex, do you think you'd like to join us when you're done with that book?
Right?
Great.
So this is an example that shows the powerful way that the educator was able to guide the child in the use of self-regulation techniques to support him in managing his big feelings. Listening to the educator suggesting taking a moment, a time away versus a time out, where the child still maintains a sense of control, experienced as supportive and empathic, versus being directed to a timeout, experienced as shaming or punishing. This was all possible because the educator was the trusting, empathic, responsive relationship who used the heat of the moment as a learning and teaching opportunity. And you also see the important role books play as a calming tool, as well as a teaching tool to deal with one's emotions and understand those of others. And I've recently written and published several children's books to explore issues that children are dealing with, such as issues around loss or death or diversity, and inclusivity, with the goal that to support children in being able to identify, express, and be able to manage and regulate their emotions and understanding the emotions of others, and be able to understand that they're not alone in what they're feeling, which is so important for children. And as educators and caregivers, we can use those stormy temper tantrums as teachable moments. These are wonderful opportunities to really engage in talking about emotions and helping children when emotions are heightened right then and there in the heat of the moment, to become aware of what they're feeling and expressing their emotions in constructive ways, better managing the intensity of their emotions, again, both positive or negative, lays the critical foundation for emotional intelligence. Children's ability to self-regulate provides them with a toolbox and skills to carry with them throughout their lives. And by knowing how to effectively deal with and successfully manage their own emotions, children become more aware of and better able to understand not only their own emotions and behaviors, but also those of others. Through responsive relationships, we can teach children from the very beginning that their emotions do not need to overwhelm them. And emotions just are a part of who we are. And we can all become the boss of our own big emotions, no matter how big or small. And in doing so, we can help children to effectively deal with the stress, the anxiety, with the uncertainty and trauma that life throws their way. Send them on their path with a strong and positive sense of self. By supporting children in terms of their self-regulation from birth, we're laying the foundation of emotional intelligence and can truly impact a child's trajectory. And self-regulation can be a change maker that closes the gaps and opens the doors of opportunity for every child. And it all starts with you, the key responsive relationships that you forge with them. So right now, I'm going to invite Emily in, and we're going to have a conversation about the role you play as a key socializer in children's development of self-regulation and the impact that co-regulation has in the classroom. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
So good to have you and
Great
the
to be
opportunity
here.
for us to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
So to begin with, can you share a bit about your journey as a teacher before you had any understanding of the importance that your own emotions play? And how did you handle heated situations in the classroom?
Definitely not to the best of my ability, I think is really what it comes down to. Because, when my own stress, and as we know, being an educator, especially in early childhood, is so incredibly stressful. And so when I wasn't, managing my own stress or having any, control over that, whenever there would be dysregulation in the classroom, it would just overwhelm with chaos. And I would end up unintentionally, of course, escalating children because of my own, body language, facial expressions, tone of voice. And that was really, boiled down to myself as an educator not being able to self-regulate as an adult. I would really lose my patience when it came to managing other heated situations, which just really then would spiral.
Right. And you're bringing up some really important points about cueing in and how children are cueing in to not only what you're saying, but your body, what you're looking like, your tone of voice, as you were mentioning. Because as we know, children learn through observation, through imitation, and how we guide and model and respond to them. So all things that we may not be aware of are communicating messages and information to children that they're taking in.
Absolutely. And that can be confusing too.
That's right. Exactly. So we really want to make sure that what we're saying really is consistent with our behavior. Okay. So another question. In what ways does understanding your own emotions impact your ability to be a trusted caregiver in responsive relationships with children? And what did you notice before your training compared to after your training?
I think, the trainings that are aimed to really help me as an educator first understand and deal with my own emotions really allowed me to be in those responsive relationships with children. Because as I said, before training, I really had, I was not able to control my stress or manage those feelings, even though I thought that I was. And like we said, children picked up on that. And so I wasn't able to really support them as well. And so, our training programs, I think, are so unique in the fact that it really helped me to grow my self-awareness and be more emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent, and really identify my own learned behaviors that weren't always, serving me in the best of ways, or my career or the children I taught. And by identifying those things really helped to come up with strategies to improve through, consistent training and feedback, as well as live mentorship and coaching. I think always having people to help you self-reflect is the way that I was able to come to those conclusions and therefore be open to new strategies, which is so important. And through my training, I really was able to be proactive instead of reactive in the heat of the moment. Like I said before, I would lose my patience. That's very reactive. And so I could really anticipate those moments of stress and the feelings that come from it to really find strategies that would work. Because not only was I attuned and present in myself, I was also attuned to the children in my class. And I would use the strategies that I use to regulate my feelings to help guide and model for them as well.
Right. So there are two things that you're mentioning that, I really want to comment on. And one has to do with being reactive. And there is a big difference between being responsive and responding to children, which we do want to do, versus reacting, which doesn't really allow for us to really become more aware of ourselves. And the self-awareness, as you also mentioned, Emily, is critical in helping us really become more aware of what we're feeling and what we do with our feelings, how we communicate them, because we're just so used to reacting in terms of how we've always done it in the past. So when we take a step back and really begin to think about how we are feeling and how we are expressing those feelings, can be of enormous guidance and help in how we begin to communicate and teach children in terms of them too really becoming more aware of their own feelings and how to be able to express them in more helpful and constructive ways.
Absolutely. And I even see some comments in the chat box about this. Someone said that, we also need to give ourselves grace as educators and be okay that it, can be really hard sometimes. And that is a huge part of emotional awareness, is really accepting those feelings, even the ones that don't feel great. And, Donna, in our trainings, we talk about this a lot, that, it takes so much more energy to deny them than to just accept them and move forward and understand that everyone experiences these things and that's okay. And that's also the message that we want to give to children.
Absolutely. That's really critical. And to know, as you were just mentioning, that all feelings are fine. It's usually the more challenging, prickly feelings that we have a problem with, and we want to kind of shelve in a drawer and hide. But those are the most important feelings for us to acknowledge, that they're very natural, and it's what we do with them that's really most important. It's not a problem that we have them. It's the issue in terms of what we end up doing with them. And once we acknowledge them and we're aware of them, then we have much more control over what we do with them.
Absolutely.
Okay. So how did learning and engaging in co-regulation strategies change or impact you professionally and then personally?
I think personally, it really gave me, the skills that could apply to my entire life. I think in education, especially when it comes to training in early childhood education, it's easy to think, okay, this will help me professionally, this will help me personally, but really these skills are ones that translate throughout your entire life. And through the years and years of my training in this, I really feel that my entire perspective has shifted, as well as my communication and how I communicate my feelings, how I respond and react to stress and relate to others. And it really has, benefited me in so many ways, not just in the classroom. because I do, those skills translate into personal stress. And that's so, so important. And I think, really connects back to what you were speaking about today about, that this is a buffer for adversity, and it can be, helpful in terms of gaining resilience. And it really is true because, I feel able to handle things that life throw at me, whether that's personal or professional. And then through the professional lens, I think it really boils down to the fact that it actually let me do my job. We say this all the time that, when, especially now, in early childhood, you just feel like you're putting out fires after fire of dysregulation and chaos. And I think when I have these skills and that translates into the children that I teach, it allows me to actually then teach, because once they're regulated, they can learn and think, and it just is a complete shift in the feeling in the classroom. And through that, children really develop confidence. They're able to have control and have agency and be independent, while also being more empathetic towards others and more understanding of others. And even back to that first video that we showed about, the child who was crying. He was crying because he had hit a friend. And so that was an expression of guilt in part. And I think, I saw some comments about that video at the time, and it's so important to support both children, of course, in coming together to solve a problem, but you can't do that if one is that dysregulated. The first step really is to calm down so that children can understand and express what happened, what they're feeling, and find a solution. But even though they're working on co-regulation, it was evident that he's so sad because he hurt a friend's body, and that's a positive thing.
Right. And again, for a child to be able to access that, they have to be more physiologically regulated. And then they can start to think about what they can do to make it better and come up with solutions. And the goal is, even though through co-regulation, we're trying to help children develop self-regulation, the goal is to help children come together and really work through problems or conflicts that they're having. And the teacher is used as a guide and a model to help them do that.
Definitely.
Now, what strategies did you use as an educator to support children developing self-regulation through co-regulation?
There are so many. So, I know we've talked about a bunch of them already, calm voice and body language, labeling feelings. I find the use of visuals really, really helpful, whether it's visual tools or regulation tools that have a visual component. But I would really like to support children by translating these techniques into curriculum. So books was really, really key in this, in terms of helping children to connect to situations and characters. And through that, help them almost solve a problem and think of regulation strategies that I can then remind them about later when they are in the midst of that moment.
Right. And when you're talking about books too, when I had referred a little bit earlier about the books that I've written, what was really important for me was to include and build into these books a whole page on tips for the reader, the educator, and or parent, and also guided questions that would help individualize and personalize the experience that was being discussed in the book to the child that is being read to. And this is really important and helpful, because then it allows the child, through the lens of seeing what's happening within the characters of the book, to be able to then think about their own experience and start to share their own emotions and also issues that are coming up for them, and how they could really start to think about it and be able to express it in helpful ways in order to be able to solve the issue at hand. So books are so important, as we saw in one of the videos as well, where the child decided to take the book as a calming tool to go off and be able to begin to regulate himself and then rejoin the class.
Absolutely. And I think, as teachers, it seems very easy to think, oh yeah, I'll just read them a book. But books can really be so much more than that. And that's why I love that in your books, you have those guided questions and those tips for the reader, because it really helps regardless of who the adult is, it could be parents, guardians, it doesn't matter. It helps them really guide that learning about emotions through a story that takes it from not just reading a story, but now you're actually helping to give children strategies and skills that they need for the rest of their lives. And that's really, really helpful for anyone supporting children.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Donna, just a heads up, we have about 2 more minutes.
Okay, so then, okay, so let's probably have time for one more question.
Yeah.
All right, we've discussed the importance of responsive relationships, the development of self-regulation. Can you describe the different developmentally appropriate ways of responding and interacting with babies versus toddlers versus preschoolers? And engaging in this manner, what differences did you notice with the children?
Sure. I think with younger children, infants and toddlers, it's really starting with co-regulation, as we know. So again, the calm voice and body language, physical support if the child wants it, really helping them to label those feelings and recognize them. So using, again, visual aids, showing different emotions, mirrors, regulation tools. And then as children go into the older years, so preschool, pre-K kind of age, is where you can really kind of peel back and start to guide going to those resources. Just like that video, the teacher says, Alex, do you want to go take a moment in the cozy corner and read a book? So she's guiding him verbally, but she isn't doing it with him side by side. And one of the big ones here as well was what you mentioned earlier about teaching children to say or know that they need space. It's okay to need space. We all need space. And it's actually really powerful for children to be able to express that, to know I'm not in control right now and I need space. And that's an amazing thing.
And to also be given the permission to the child that it's okay.
Yeah.
And it can be a good thing for them to be able to be off from all the stimulation, to have their, time to really calm down.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I want to be respectful of the time. I think we're right on the nose in terms of our time is up. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and it's been wonderful. And I think we have up on the screen, some last information. If anybody would like to learn more, please feel free just to visit our website. And we're happy to share more information with you and be helpful in any way we can. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you so, so much, Donna and Emily. That was amazing. I'm going to go ahead and quickly take the screen share back. We're going to go ahead and do our poll for the day, and then we'll dive into a really quick Q&A. While I'm getting my screen set up, I recommend just taking a peek at the chat, because there's a lot of big thank yous and appreciation in there for you today. Okay, so really quickly, everybody, before we dive into our Q&A, we're going to go ahead and launch our questions of the day. We have changed up our questions a little bit. So if you've been here with us for a while, for over 100 webinars with us, we've finally changed up some of this question. And one thing we're really curious about today, one, is your Center a Hi Mama customer? Are you interested in learning more about the Houseman Institute? Again, reminder about Hi Mama Academy, if you're interested in learning about how Hi Mama Academy can help put professional development at your fingertips. We're also curious to know, so if you've been part of our webinar journey for the past 133 webinars, we've been doing them every single Thursday. We're curious to know, how would you feel if these webinars got switched to a bi-weekly schedule? Would that be easier for you? Is it really hard to get on these every single Thursday? Maybe you wouldn't like that at all. Maybe you love joining this community every Thursday. We really want to know how it's working for you and what would be the best sequence of webinars for you and your life as a busy early childcare professional. Okay, I'm going to leave that up for you, and we'll dive quickly into a Q&A before we have to wrap up. I'm just going to pull up these questions here. The first question I want to start with, Donna and Emily, I saw this actually as a comment in the chat. So we pulled it out, and then I saw it again just a minute or so ago. So this first one here is referring back to the first video you shared. And there seemed to be a few questions or concerns about how the educator in that video paid attention to the aggressor instead of the victim. What are your thoughts on that?
So I touched on this a little bit a moment ago, but when, we know that the child, if he hit the other child, obviously that is not kind. It hurts their bodies. But when either child is so dysregulated, they cannot listen to that messaging. So if you don't take the time as a teacher to help that child calm down, and if you remember the other child was calm, if you don't take that time to help the dysregulated child calm down, they won't be able to hear that that was hurtful behavior, or hear what their friend was feeling, or think of strategies to help them feel better and solve the problem. And so the first step, regardless of who was the aggressor, is really to make sure that both children are calm and in a space where they can come together, hear the messaging, problem solve, and find ways to prevent that behavior and make it better.
Now, in a situation, I want to add that had the other child that had been hit been really upset and
Yes, that's different.
that is the first
Yes.
person who would have gone to.
Yes.
So just to make that clear.
Yeah, that's why I said the other child, I emphasize them being calm, because obviously if a child is hurt or extremely dysregulated, they're the attention, just this situation where that child was okay, he was calm. It's important that both.
Right. And what you didn't get to see was how it got resolved in terms of bringing both children together, where both children were able to not only talk about what they saw the problem to be, but what each felt and what were things that they could come up with as ideas to solve the problem, and then to agree on that solution and then follow through with that, so that both children then are getting heard. The child that was, hit on his cheek, he was able to have expressed what he didn't like about it, what he would have liked, what he would have preferred instead of that. And the child that did that was able to hear that and agree that that's not a good thing to do because it hurts a friend. And they came up with a different solution when he got angry, what he could do in terms of letting that friend know that without using his body to hurt him.
Yeah. And also, in the video, the teacher, when she approached, didn't immediately know what had happened. And so for the teacher perspective, you're seeing a child who is dysregulated and crying. And in order to figure out what happened from both, you need them both to be calm enough to use those words. And so by going over, she was able to support the child in co-regulating while also get some more information about what happened, so that could take place after, as Donna was saying.
Right. Absolutely. And I guess that's also a good point to know when you don't know what's going on, regardless of who engaged in the physical behavior, both children are struggling with something.
Right.
Absolutely. So this next question is pretty similar actually to some of the things we just touched on, but in case you want to add anything, this question is, if a child is dealing with heavy emotions that cause that child to engage in an unkind behavior to another classmate, do you always make the point to self-regulate before kind of saying what you observed happened? Does that make sense? Like, you always make the point to encourage self-regulation before saying, oh, I saw you hit your friend.
Well, the first thing you want to make sure of is that they regulate physiologically their body, not in terms of all of self-regulation, but just to be able to regulate their body, for example, doing some deep breathing, so that they can, as Emily had expressed a little bit earlier, so that they can then access their thinking. You cannot access your thinking when you're so dysregulated and your emotions have hijacked everything about you. So that's why the first step is to just get them in a state where they can start to think about what happened, begin to talk about it, and to be able to resolve it.
Yeah, I think it's very situational, which is why the educator being attuned to children is so important, because it really does depend on the situation.
Right. Absolutely. And one more really quick question about that before we have to wrap up. When an educator is supporting a child who is dysregulated, and we're supporting them in building self-regulation strategies, at what point do you jump in to offer a strategy versus waiting to see if they come up with their own strategy for self-regulation?
Well, I think it's really important to encourage children to participate in the solution because
Mhm.
you don't want to be just having it come from the outside. You really want to build it within the child in terms of
Yep.
thinking about ways to resolve and solve problems. So you can prompt them in terms of what idea they may have, or you can make a suggestion to prompt them and for them to then really participate in the solution. It's really important that they are a participant because then they feel that their ideas are important, their feelings are important, and they're part of the solution.
Yeah, and again, that is situational as well. Even thinking about the second video, yes, that child was frustrated, but was he in a meltdown mode? No. So he could, hear and follow the guidance of the teacher to suggest a strategy that worked for him. That's very different, though, than a child who is in complete meltdown mode, which might require more feeding self-regulation through co-regulation. So that might require a teacher to offer two choices. Do you want to look at your family photo or do you want to use a calm down bottle? And kind of guiding the child to choose from those two small, simple choices,
Mhm.
and follow up. I think the follow up there is so important. So making sure that the child's choice is helping them to regulate.
Right. And the
Right.
main message is to help the child feel more in control. And the choices, as Emily was just describing, although you're framing the choices, the child is the one that's making the choice. So it's leaving the child feeling that they have control over what is going on. And that's what you really want to help the child develop is more of a sense of control.
Yeah. Amazing. I really like the touch on the follow through, the follow up with the child. I thought that was really beautiful in that video so that the child wasn't left feeling like you need to go experience your behaviors over here because we don't want anything to do with them. It was more, this is what, will help your body. And then we would love for you to come back and be with us. So I really like that.
And that's exactly what Donna was saying. That space is not a timeout, and we never
Yeah.
want to phrase it as that. This
Yeah.
child was really frustrated because he couldn't do something, and that's frustrating. We can understand that as adults, and so it's not space to sit it out because you can't do it. It's space to calm down and then always do you want to come back and try again, or do you have a different idea that you want to try, so that the child is going there because they recognize it as a tool and a strategy to help them, which is really the goal. And that's, again, the child, when they do choose that, that's a sign of their agency that this does help
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Donna and Emily, thank you so, so much. This was fabulous as always. I can't believe that is officially part 3 of our 3-part series. We really appreciate you being here with us today and sharing again your time and this amazing knowledge with us and our community on here today. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Everyone on here, before we wrap up really quickly, reminder, the show notes, email, and recording are going out early next week with the slides, with the recording, your certificate. Keep an eye out for your email. That's all going to be in your inbox early next week. And don't forget to check those spam, those junk folders, social promotions. There's so many in there now and things can get lost. So make sure to take a look in there. Next week, same time, same place. We will be back here 2:00 next Thursday, November 17th already. We're talking about connecting with your inner leader in the field of early childhood education. Again, in our show notes email, we will be announcing the giveaway winner, so take a look in there. And lastly, if you have not connected with us yet on our social media accounts, please do. We have a really beautiful community of educators sharing ideas, tips, tricks, challenges they're experiencing. As well, we announce some really exciting updates on our Facebook and Instagram page, so you don't want to miss out on those. Otherwise, thank you so much to everybody for being here again with us on this Thursday afternoon. And we certainly hope to see you all next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.